have before you a man who was quite a personage in his way. Truscott of the Yard. Never heard of Truscott? The man who tracked down the limbless girl killer? Or was that sensation before your time?
Who'd kill a limbless girl?
She was the killer.
How'd she do it if she was limbless?
I'm not prepared to answer that question to anyone outside the profession. Don't want a carbon copy murder on our hands. Do you realise what I'm doing here?
No. Your every action's been a mystery to me.
That is as it should be. The process by which the police arrive at the solution to a mystery is, in itself, a mystery. And we've reason to believe a number of crimes have been committed under your roof. There's no legal excuse for a warrant. We had no proof. However, the Water Board doesn't need a warrant to enter private houses, and so I avail myself of this loophole in the law. If your own good authority behaves in this seemingly alarming fashion, does my explanation satisfy you?
Oh, yes, Inspector. You have a duty to do. My personal freedom must be sacrificed. I've no further questions.
Good. I shall now proceed to bring the crimes to light, beginning with the least important.
What's that?
Murder.
The circumstances of Joe Orton's death were as bizarre as anything in his plays. The author of Loot and Entertaining Mr. Sloane was battered to death at the height of his career by his lover, Kenneth Halliwell, in their one-room flat at Knowle Road, Islington.
Did you go to the flat?
Yes, I went to the flat, yeah. Yes, it was terrible. Well, the police inspector at the time, he says, asked me if I was squeamish. He said, because it was in a terrible state, really. It looked like somebody had been throwing red oxide over the wall and the ceiling, that's how bad it was. But I never seen John like that. Obviously, when I went down to identify him, he was sitting up in bed with a bandage around his head. There was no bruising on his face whatsoever. He must have been laying face down, I think, when Kenneth went crackers.
For 15 years, Joe Orton and Ken Halliwell had lived and sometimes written together in their shabby bed-sitter in North London. They'd shared everything except success. But on August the 9th, 1967, as John Lahr, their biographer, puts it, murder made them equal again.
When I started writing Prick Up Your Ears, I very much wanted to come down Knowle Road just to get a sense of the world that Orton and Halliwell lived and wrote about, a world of no circumstances. And I remember walking in the door, the smell of ammonia on the linoleum, the wallpaper which was peeling, and it was a rather dilapidated, sad feeling one got. In the sheds at the back there, Orton and Halliwell had kept their bikes, where they used to take sorties out and around London to look at the architecture to go up to Hampstead Heath. When I got to the top floor, I didn't want to go in, because the house was reoccupied and had been redecorated. And I had a very strong feeling about that room.
I came home and I looked up at my bedroom, which is above here, and the lights were out. And I thought, oh, thank God they're asleep. But I saw their light on. I thought, that's strange, the boys, because I always called them the boys. The boys having their light on at this time of the night. I got up in the morning, got my son off to school. Aldi came down. By the way, Eleanor, he said, I saw Joe at 7:30 last night, and he told me he was going down to meet the Beatles manager, and if everything went well, he would be signing a contract for £100,000. He said when he comes back, he's going to come in and let us know how he's got on. When I came back in the afternoon, there was the BBC, the ITV, the police. And I thought, goodness me, he's really had a hit. I was so thrilled for him, and I came to the doorstep, and I looked at Aldo and I said, oh, it's all happened. Let's come inside. I said, he's had a hit. He said he has, he's dead. I just couldn't believe it, because while we were in the kitchen, They were dead upstairs. They'd been dead I don't know how long. Both of them.
Halliwell, whose bald head was just visible through the letterbox, had taken 25 Nembutols, which he'd swallowed with a glass of grapefruit juice to make him get into his blood quickly. Orton had his head, in the book, I say, was cratered like a candle, and from the coroner's reports, that's indeed what happened. There was an estimate of 9 blows with a hammer. There was a note on Orton's diaries that said, if you read this, especially the latter part, all will be explained, KH.
What happened that night, to me, is still a mystery, and I really never could believe that he would have done a thing like this.
No.
Because I think Joe would always have been with Ken, would always stay with Ken and thing, because I think they were two that, probably if they did row, but I think they were two that would still have kept together, no matter what happened, you know, whether he went forward or dried up or whatever. I think he would have stuck, and they were both stuck together. But whether the other chap didn't think this, I don't know.
He must have had some sort of a fear.
I think it was fear.
Must have
Could
had.
have been some form of fear.
A fear of what?
A
A
fear.
fear of losing Joe.
When we got home, we talked about ourselves and our relationship. I think it's bad that we live in each other's pockets 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. When I'm away, Kenneth does nothing, meets nobody. What's to be done? He's now taking tranquilizers to calm his nerves. Monday, May the 1st. Kenneth H. had a long talk about our relationship. He threatens, or keeps saying, he will commit suicide. He says, you'll learn then, won't you? And what will you be like without me? We talked and talked until I was exhausted, going round in circles. He said he wasn't going to come away to Morocco. He was going to kill himself. I've led a dreadful, unhappy life. I'm pathetic.
Well, this is where Halliwell said, we're living Strindberg. This is the dance of death. And where the fights occurred, and also, to some degree, where they had all their tremendous pranks. It was from that front window that they dropped prophylactics that they'd blow up as balloons onto the cordons, hollyhocks, and do all those pranks, which were, in a sense, typical of Orton's unmastered aggression, the kind of aggression that he mastered finally in his plays.
I'm not asking for my handbag back, nor for the money you've stolen. But unless my dress and wig are returned, I shall file a complaint with your employer. You have until lunchtime.
She'll be sodden before long.
Have you a family, sir?
No, my wife felt that breastfeeding might spoil her shape. Though from what I remember, it would have been improved by a bit of nibbling.
Oh!
She's a fine example of inbreeding amongst the lobelia-growing classes. A failure in eugenics, accompanied by a liking for alcohol and sexual intercourse, made it most undesirable she become a mother.
I hardly ever have sexual intercourse.
You were born with your legs apart. They'll send you to the grave in a Y-shaped coffin.
My trouble stems from your inadequacy as a lover. It's embarrassing. You must have learned your technique from a Christmas cracker. Rejuvenation pills have no effect on you.
I never take pills.
You take them all the time during our lovemaking. The deafening noise of your chewing is my reason for never having an orgasm.
How dare you say that? Your book on the climax in the female was largely autobiographical. Or have you been masquerading as a sexually responsive woman?
My uterine contractions have been bogus for some time.
Well, it was one evening, my father was was reading the Daily Mirror, and it had an headline, something like Gorilla Among the Roses. And father, who was keen gardener, thought, oh, I'll read this, you see, it might be a bit about hybrids. and he realised that it was his son. So he went, mother was always in bed anyway early, and he dashed upstairs and said, we used to call her Mum. Mother. That's right, I used to call her Mother. Mother! Our Joe's been nicked.
It will be somewhere around about 1960. Now and again, some reader will bring in a book and say, look, I think this is wrong. And we'd find that there'd been a neatly typed caption pasted in over the original caption at the foot of a picture in a book. sometimes amusing, sometimes mildly obscene. Gradually these increased, and then we found a second type of thing started developing, and this was alterations to the actual book jackets. There's one here, it may not be very visible there, the pictures are rather small. It's a book about the great Tudors, and each one of the pictures has had a different face. That, in fact, is a monkey's face, carefully pasted over the original face on the photograph. A certain number of biographies where there was a portrait of the original biography on the front of the book were changed. This one of Robert Helpman has got a couple of people wrestling there on the front. Another biography was this one of John Betjeman, where the portrait of Betjeman has been replaced by a man with his whole body tattooed. Then we started getting these rather surrealistic ones. There's a similar one which was mentioned in the original trial for theft, of the picture of a monkey pasted over the middle of a rose in a book on roses. There's another one here which is mildly amusing. It's the novel The Steel Cocoon, and there's a very tight jockstrap pasted there underneath the title. Then we started getting some worked on the illustrations inside the books. This one here in a biography of, I think it was Gertrude Lawrence. I'm not quite sure. This is a still from the film, which is shown as an illustration, in which she's playing the part of Edith Cavell in a prison cell, and over here on this side there's the warder looking through the prison cell door at her, and in the middle is the middle torso section from a Greek statue at which she's gazing. Underneath it says, "During the Second World War, I was working from dawn to dusk to serve the many thousands of sailors, soldiers and airmen. American GIs came in shoals to my surgery, and some had very peculiar orders for me." And that was the picture that illustrated it. We had quite a series of these Gollancz books. This is an old and rather tatty cover now, but you can see they used to have an almost facsimile typewriter blurb down here, and by carefully taking this lot out, cutting down there, reversing the paper to get the blank side, they were able to place that back in position with a typewritten blurb on it. Most of these blurbs were written in the true style, so that one started reading almost without realizing that this was a thing which had been doctored. I'll read you a little bit of this one. "When little Betty McDree says that she's been interfered with, her mother at first laughs. It is only something the kiddies picked up off the television. But when sorting through the laundry, Mrs. McDree discovers that a new pair of young Betty's knickers are missing. She thinks again." It goes on like that. They go to the police station, and young Betty identifies PC Brenda Coolidge as the attacker. A search is made of the women's police barracks. What is found there is a 7-inch phallus and a pair of knickers of the kind used by Betty. All looks black for kindly PC Coolidge. What can she do? This is one of the most enthralling stories ever written by Miss Sayers. It is the only one in which the murder weapon is concealed, not for reasons of fear, but for reasons of decency. And he goes on to say, "Read this behind closed doors and have a good shit whilst you're reading it." Now, that's the sort of thing that shocked quite a number of our readers, the elderly, more ladylike ones. I must say that I and many of my colleagues almost looked forward to seeing these. They were amusing to us, but at the same time, of course, this was an attack on our books. Our book stock, of which we were very proud, was being attacked by predators.
Well, we had the names of Orton and Halliwell, who lived at 25 Knoll Road, Islington. We called in the Islington police, and I saw with Mr. Croft at the time, Detective Sergeant Hermitage. And I remember correctly, it was Easter Thursday, just before Good Friday, 1962. And he said, "Well, look, this is not a matter for the police, this is a civil matter." And I said, with the deputy, "Well, look, this is nonsense. These books are obscene. We've got a whole cabinet full of them." And he said, "Well, no, definitely a civil matter." But his parting shot was, "Look, if you can get a letter written on the typewriter that's been used on these dust covers of the books, then we'll have a look at it." So that was our problem. I said, "OK, if you're setting us that problem, we'll see what we can do."
Sidney Porritt wrote to Halliwell in an official capacity and accused him of being the owner of a car illegally parked in Knowle Road. Needless to say, Halliwell did not own a car.
Did you get the reply?
In came a reply. Dear sir, I should like to know who provided you with this mysterious information. Whoever they are, they must be a liar, a moron, probably both. I have never possessed a car of any make whatsoever and never wish to. I can only presume that someone is staging a leg pull with you or me or both. I would suggest that in future you obtain your information from some more reliable source before pestering people with inexplicable letters. Yours contemptuously, signed Kenneth L. Halliwell, Kenneth L. Halliwell. Well, the letter did the trick. I, being quite zealous about it, already got myself a watchmaker's glass, and I was satisfied that it was the same typewriter. I'm sorry to have to say this, but in my view, it was nothing else but common theft. He may have become successful later on, but to me, they were both a stealer of library books, stealer of other people's property.
Their term was 6 months. Actually, Joe did quite enjoy prison. I mean, Halliwell tried to commit suicide twice, but Joe didn't. And I was determined to write to him, even though he didn't want to. I think there was only about 2 letters that came from prison, and one was at the beginning, and one was right at the end. And the one at the end was quite revealing, really, because he said that he'd found detachment in his writing. Well, in my naive way, really, I didn't understand what he really meant by that. I mean, it didn't really mean much. And that the Old Horse Society had really lifted up a skirt, and the stench was pretty foul. I realised that he'd had some sort of revelation in prison.
I'm going to ask you a question or two. I want straight answers, nothing of piss-taking. Is that understood? Do I make myself plain? I'm talking English. Do you understand?
Yes.
Oh, all right, then. As long as we know. Now, be sensible. Where's the money?
By now, I'd say it was halfway up the aisle of the Church St. Barnabas and St. Jude.
Ah! How dare you! He's only a boy!
I'm not impressed with his sex, miss. I asked for the truth!
I'm telling the truth!
Understand this, lad. You can't get away with cheek. Kids nowadays treat any kind of authority as a challenge. We'll challenge you. If you oppose me in my duty, I'll kick those teeth through the back of your head. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Would you excuse me, Inspector?
You're at liberty to answer your own doorbell, miss. That is how we tell whether or not we live in a free country. Where's the money?
It's in church.
Don't lie to me!
I'm not lying. It's in church.
Under any other political system, I'd have you on the floor in tears!
He's got me on the floor in tears.
Where's the money?
Church, I've told you, they're quoting St. Paul over it.
I don't care, they're quoting the highway code over it. One last chance! Where is it?
In church, in church. My dad's watching the last rites, 104,000 quid.
I'll hose you down. I'll chlorinate you. You'll be laughing on the other side of your bloody face.
They've had an accident.